148 be lifted from rules and sent to Business and Labor.
Thank you, Senator. Would you tell us the name of the bill?
Yes, it's Utah Fair Housing and Employment Act.
Thank you. The motion by Senator McAdams is to lift 148 from rules and send it to Business and Labor. Senator Dayton.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would oppose this motion. We have a process here where people can create bills, and then when they are sifted, we obviously will not hear every bill. 1,202 bill files have been opened. At this point in the session, we have been able to hear and have committee hearings on and pass less than 300. So there's a sifting process, and every committee sifts bills. In the standing committees, some of the bills are passed, some are amended, some are tabled, some are killed. But the first part of the committee sifting process is the Rules Committee. And there are a number of bills that are being held in Rules Committee by way of sifting for the various reasons that they are held. That bill, particular bill, fits into that category. There doesn't seem to be the interest in the committee, the Rules Committee, to lift it out. There have been motions to lift it from rules. The votes have not succeeded, and so I would oppose this motion.
Thank you. Senator Bramwell.
I rise in support of our Rules Chair and her opposition. I think we need to defeat this motion. I think we have a process, and generally speaking, the process works. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Stevenson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to ask questions of the sponsor of the motion.
Thank you. Senator McAdams.
Thank you.
Proceed.
We have several cities now that have the anti-discrimination regarding housing and employment that serve as sort of incubators and laboratories to help us know as a state legislature when and if that kind of city ordinance ought to be expanded to be a statewide statute. And I'm eager to learn what the experience has been in those municipalities. I think you've done a wonderful job of helping keep us attuned to the fact that we want to look at that. We want to ensure that if we're going to expand this to be a statewide statute, that we want to look at what the data are. And so I'm open to keeping the dialogue open. I think we really need to. We need to be open to the option of making this a statute. But I just wondered if we have data currently, if that data is compelling at this point to have us act on this motion to send it to committee and have it go through the process. If you could answer that.
Sure. Thank you, Senator. I believe I have seen the data. I do believe the data is compelling. I also believe that that is the purpose of a committee hearing, to hear this data, to hear the testimony, and decide if this is something that such a committee would want to refer to the full Senate floor for enactment. And it's for those reasons that I have made this motion today.
Thank you. Mr. President, I'm reluctant to overstep our normal process unless I've seen compelling data which shows that we ought to move forward with a statewide statute. And so I will look forward to having that dialogue offline. But right now, without having seen that data, it's hard to vote to supersede the normal process by which we sift legislation. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Butters.
I think that this is one of those things, we've heard the phrase, this is something going where to fix something that isn't broken. I don't know why we try to press these things out that like this when there isn't a demand for it. In fact, and I've asked a lot of people in a lot of cities, they look at me and say, huh? I believe that the process has worked, and I believe that we should turn down this request.
Thank you. Senator Robles.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am here in support of this motion. I agree we do have a process. I encourage my colleagues to look at the disproportionate numbers when it comes to that process. And there are several bills, including a couple of mine, that are still in rules. And when you see the number of bills that the minority party sometimes brings forward, and the fact that many of them get stuck in rules, I find that to be unfair, and it's not a fair process. So when one of my colleagues gets up and speaks loudly in the chambers of the importance of this piece of legislation, I think he deserves the respect of all of us to let it go through the process and take it to a committee. And for that, I hope you will support this motion. Thank you.
Senator Davis?
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, I would encourage the Rules Committee to look at this bill and perhaps do what's right, bring it out, and give it a fair public hearing. I think that's an important thing to do. I think that's the process of the Rules Committee. I agree with the idea that it is a sifting committee. The sifting should not be in a manner that stops or stifles public comment on issues of our day. And so if this is defeated, I'm in support of the motion to lift. If the motion is defeated, I would encourage the Rules Committee to take a look at this and at least get it assigned to a committee so it can have a public hearing and a fair public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Romero?
Thank you, Mr. President. A question for the sponsor.
Do you yield?
Yes.
Proceed.
So we heard some statistical information about how many bills there have been proposed and the nature of where they are in process. I just want to understand if this bill was one of your priority bills and how long it might have been sitting in rules.
Thank you. This is not a bill that I've had designated as a priority bill per se, because it's one that's been drafted for many, many months prior to the time that we needed to designate priority bills. But for that matter, it has been in rules. I just looked. It was assigned to the Rules Committee on February 7th. So coming up on, actually I think it was before that, but nearing a month is how long it's been in rules waiting to be assigned for a public hearing.
Thank you. I want to speak in favor of the motion, and it goes to the process of making sure that there's public debate and dialogue on ideas that are brought forward, and specifically bills that might be proposed by the minority party and by minority party members. We recognize we don't always have the numbers to move bills forward, but we'd like to think our bills will be given fair consideration and for there to be an opportunity for the public debate. This bill has been in rules for a while, and it's not one that is still needing to be drafted or is not one that hasn't had a lot of attention. And so I think that the sponsor deserves to have his bill heard in committee and let the committee make an ultimate decision. I'll also point out that this motion is part of the process. It is part of the process where we can ask the rules be suspended and for a bill to be heard. And so I hope the body appreciates that we are complying with the rules even as we make this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Jenkins?
You know, I appreciate Senator McAdams' motion today. And you're right, this is part of the process. And you're also right that it is weighted against the minority at times. And we're not going to argue that. And I don't begrudge you in any way, shape, or form for bringing this motion up. It is the way it is to be done. But if you want a majority vote, there's no question we have issues at times that separate us, and this is one of those issues. And so if you want the majority vote, you need to do the work on the front end to make sure we understand the facts and figures that you want to change or that you want to present to us that make us want to support this. And so, in fact, you've got to do that, and as part of the process also. And so we look forward to receiving that information.